Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network present the Discover Your Mission series.
I can't even share with you how I was so wrote in my faith. And I was attending Mass, but I was not present. I was a good man, I was a good father, I was instilling the sacraments into my family. I was definitely not intentional. I was stuck wrote in my faith.
I did not want to become Catholic. I came into the church kicking and screaming. I even left for a period because I was like, I can't. All my plans that I had are gone now. So I tried to go back, only to come back later on because of the Eucharist.
But what kind of strength did he have? Jackie did not just have a strength of body or baseball skill. He had a strength inside of his spirit, a courageous meekness that empowered him to play the game.
My husband comes home from work and I tell him what is going on with me and he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, I think this is like some sort of miracle, dude. And he's like, oh, of course, but I'll believe it when I see it. Honey, you've been trying to quit and you've been saying this and saying that. And his big line to me is, you shouldn't say things because I never follow through on them. And so this was week after week, month after month. He is looking at me like, this is a miracle. There is no way that you, on your own, could have done this.
In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 16 through 21, St. Paul compares the sacrifice of the Christians to the sacrifice of Israel and then to the sacrifice of the pagans. Paul calls the chalice the blood of Christ, and the bread as participation in the body of Christ, and then warns his listeners that you cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons at the same time. So in other words, you need to decide, what are you going to participate in? Are you going to participate in the historic Christian idea of the altar of sacrifice, which is in the Eucharist, or not?
faith when it comes to life and perseverance in general, and the love of God with him and with others. And when I really started to take ownership of that faith, I'd say is probably in high school, when I started to, I guess, take it on myself to learn more about my faith, to encounter the faith, to surround myself with people of the faith and make it my own instead of just a tradition with my family. Although, of course, it was more than that. When you're raised in a certain way, it takes until you're a little older to take ownership. So I remember going to youth group a bunch and a different conference that really taught me how to do that and how to live out my faith aside from just the family setting.
Awesome. It looks like for a few moments we lost a little bit of the audio, Anne. So if you wouldn't mind reintroducing Shawn for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like we just had a little glitch out.
To everyone, my wonderful daughter, Shawn DeSantis, who is a college student and a person of faith. And also she has her own business, which we're going to learn about a little bit later in the podcast, called Your Part-Time Princess. So I know that Bill said we just kind of lost a little bit of audio. So Shawn, if you want to kind of reiterate a little bit of what you just said, would be a good idea.
Yeah, just about the faith, or just introducing me in general?
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm Anne's daughter, and I was saying before this came on that it's funny doing a podcast with your mom because, of course, she knows everything I'm about to say. But I was just talking about my faith and growing up in a homeschooling environment and going to church and being taught the faith and living it out, and then taking ownership of it more so in my teens, like in high school, going to youth group and surrounding myself with people who also, oh my goodness, thought the same way. And it was really great because in your faith, when you're at home and it's something your family teaches, you go along with it, but then you can learn to really take ownership of it when you get older.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You definitely took ownership of it, and I'm so proud of you. And I know we're on a podcast, so we won't get super personal between the two of us here. But yeah, I'm, as a mother, just very proud of how you've taken ownership of your faith. And part of Sowing Hope, I mean, our mission here at Sowing Hope Podcast is sowing hope into broken hearts. And I know that you understand that greatly. And anything else that you want to share about just your faith and your mission would be so appreciated. I know you have a lot more to share.
Yeah, of course. I really like that you say the sowing hope into broken hearts, because how much of that do we see in our society? People are broken. People are going through rough time, whether that be because of situations or their own issues or mental health problems. And I know what that's like, especially dealing with anxiety. It can get hard sometimes, but I've learned through my faith and perseverance. So my faith teaches me perseverance. I turn to God to give me perseverance to go on, even when I face anxious times. And sometimes it can be a daily battle in your mind. It can be mentally, when you're dealing with anxiety, it can be difficult. But if you turn to God, it's a whole nother story. It's like giving him all of your problems and your worries.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. And I know that at your age, too, you are a college student. And I'll tell our listeners that Shawn is 21 years old and a junior in college. And she has really matured so much, even since high school, I would say. Not to say that you weren't mature before, because you certainly were. But I think that you have learned so much because she was homeschooled, as she mentioned at the very beginning of the program, from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So going to college was, a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of a change, right? So maybe you can speak a little bit about that for us, if you would.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, high school was a time where I started learning more about the faith. And the funny thing is, when you get into your faith and you're not really challenged in it, it's different than when you get a little older and you face challenges or you face times where you really have to rely on your faith. So you may have found this faith and really delved deep into it, but then only when you face the trialing times can you really learn to rely on it. And college is, I'm still in college. I'm a senior this year. But in the beginning, it got a little bit difficult in some ways just because of my anxiety. And I had originally gone to a school that was not fit for me, and I wasn't happy in the major. So that was a trialing time. And I just remember kind of God leading me to a better situation, leading me to a better place. And through those hard times, I can look back and take the experiences for what they were, realize that I grew in perseverance, grew in strength, grew in my character. And I've also, although there were trialing times that first semester, I know that I made memories and I gained perseverance.
Yeah, so much of faith is perseverance. It's good to hear you say that. When you talk about the experience of having challenges arise for you, that's I think our society is very adversity adverse, right? We do not like to face adversity in our lives. It's just, especially young people, they run from it. They run the other direction from it. But when you're somebody who has encountered that that adversity in your life at an early age, or you begin to you then have to your faith is then challenged in those moments, right? To through that to persevere, to grow deeper in your faith and push more into your faith versus in running away from it. And so I'm wondering if you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you did face, in your faith life that pushed you closer, because obviously that's what happened. I mean, just the way you're talking, it's pushed you closer to faith, not necessarily away from it. We all run to, escape pain in today's society, and escape adversity, escape hardship, but that's not really Christian, is it? Right? It's not really Christian. It's all about embracing the cross. So talk to us a little bit about, some of those experiences for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned how people like to kind of turn away from adversity, and what kind of a society we do live in, a society like that, where people feel uncomfortable by pain or difficult situations. And it's sad because we know in the faith like that's something that does build our character. But looking back, when I think about this, I think of a couple specific time periods where my faith was really challenged. And I remember a very long time ago when I first was diagnosed with anxiety. I have OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. And so a lot of it is just a mental battle with a lot of anxiety. And I remember that specific time at a very young age was when my faith was really challenged, because when you're so young and going through a lot of anxiety, it's challenging because you're not really sure why or what's happening. So it teaches you that there is a God. Even if you're 9 or 10 years old, I believe that there was a God and there was a reason for this. And he has pulled me out of that time and taught me so much through my struggles. And of course, when you have an anxiety disorder, all throughout your life, there are going to be trialing times. And like I mentioned, there was that first semester at college, which was another trialing time. And whenever that kind of thing comes up, I just have to rely on God. I know that there are people he put in my life to help me get through it. And although I think we live kind of in a culture where when people go through mental health problems, they turn to a lot of different things. And of course, there are so many different coping mechanisms and different therapies out there. But I think the number one thing is to turn to God, because none of those things are going to be useful to you unless you know the true source of joy and your mission. All those other things are going to be temporary.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. And so, what are some of the tips then you give young people to embrace that? You know, what are some of the ways that you help them? You know, because I know you're a good peer leader and you help even younger kids too with your business. But how do you inspire your peers and all people to kind of move deeper into your faith versus running the opposite direction? What are some of those things that you have done to do that?
It's funny because and even more so recently, I've kind of lived under the principle of being an example in the way I conduct my life, because I think that's the best way to get through to people. If people see something that you have, whether that be faith or perseverance or just joy that comes from God, that's a lot more attractive than someone throwing a Bible in their face. Yeah. You know, people want to see the effects. People want to see what it is that you have in a genuine way. And I just think it's so important for people like me or anyone to share their story, because it's a reason to turn to God, and it's a reason to have more perseverance.
Amen. And I'm so proud of you. And I know we're not making this kind of a mom-daughter cheerleader session here. But I'm very proud of you, and it means so much.
Thank you.
And just, you're so articulate and have done so well. And I also want to encourage moms out there, if you're a mom who's homeschooling, because some of us have been forced into, right? Some of the moms out there have been forced into homeschooling, even though they weren't necessarily signed up for it. But we were signed up for it. I mean, we did it for a long, long time. And many people said to me over the years, you know, why did you do it? Or how did you do it? And I would say that God was the one that led the way, and it was absolutely successful. Every step of the way was successful. Now, not to say that we didn't have some bumps in the road, but you know, both of you and your sister, Shawn, I mean, I know Bill, I've told you this before too, but have done so well with college. And so homeschooling was a real big success, and we're proud of that, and also proud of you, Shawn, because how wonderful it is to see you flourish right now in your life.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I can attribute a lot to homeschooling. The number one thing I attribute to homeschooling is just how much I like being home, honestly.
I know. I agree.
Other than that, I think it really taught me, I attribute wanting to be an entrepreneur and wanting to put work in myself to homeschooling, because so much of homeschooling, as much as my mom would help me and direct me with what to do, but that's what it is. It's homeschooling. It's working on your own. It teaches you something greater than just having a book thrown in front of you and being in a classroom, which of course has its time and space, and there are some amazing schools out there. But for me, learning how to learn on my own was probably one of the best things for me.
Yes, you've done amazing. So tell us about, if you could, because we're talking about your life, right? Is your college experience. You've gotten so much from that college experience so far, and involved in the choir there at school called Voices of Gwynedd. She goes to Gwynedd Mercy University. If you're from the greater Philadelphia area, it's a local university where I'm actually a graduate as well, and so proud to have gone there, and my husband too. So maybe you could talk about that experience, if you would.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to bring up the name. I go to Gwynedd Mercy University, and it's a great school. One of the things I love most about it is our choir on campus, the Voices of Gwynedd. As my mom just said, it's a great community. And like I mentioned earlier, theater is a big passion of mine, so is singing. So when I came to this school, although I changed my major, I wanted to still be in a musical community. And I found about the Voices of Gwynedd, and it has been amazing. It has been a great source of friendship and community, and a big passion of mine. I'm able to sing again, which has been amazing. And I'm a firm believer that God leads you to where you're supposed to be in life. So while I did spend that one semester at another school, I know that where I am now is where I'm supposed to be. And the amazing experiences I've had at my new school but really it takes away any kind of struggle that I had in the beginning, because it has been great, and it makes it all worth it, because God leads you to where you're supposed to be. So it was a great experience, that journey, even though there were some bumps on the road, like my mom was saying.
That's right. And it's amazing to see. And I will also say that before this pandemic, the Voices of Gwynedd, it's a wonderful choir. And I want to make a shout out to Carol Evans, who may be at some point listening. Carol is the choir director. Is that since I am actually an alumni, I joined the choir. And how awesome was it that I got to go every week for choir practice with my own daughter and be able to be part of that choir. But because of the pandemic, we kind of had to stop for a while. But we know God has a plan, and we may be back soon, and we pray that we are. And how creative that it was able to be done, that even through Zoom calls, they were able to do some practicing and things like that. So that was
honestly, that was a miracle.
Wonderful, and a very much a miracle. Yeah.
It takes a creative mind to figure out how to do things that you have to do in person, how you can do them virtually. And I think that singing is one of those difficult things, but we were able to figure it out.
That's right. That's right. Now, I know, Shawn, that you wanted to address again, before we move on to the next topic, your experience with dealing with anxiety and things like that. I wondered if you had any words of advice to some young people who may be listening, who are going through some tough times with some anxiety or possibly even disorders that you can speak to.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. And you know, what a great question that is. Although the funny thing about that question is it's so different for anyone. People deal with so many different types of anxiety. People deal with so many different types of depression. But what I can do is speak for myself. So with what I deal with, it's all mental, and it can be just kind of something I deal with throughout the day. I just have these anxieties that come into my brain. They come out of nowhere. And it's a matter of learning the tools that I've learned in therapy and through supports to work through this and to minimize, I call it like the fuzz in your brain that comes, and you have to deal with it. You have to turn to God and turn to everything that you've learned. But I think one of the big things is having the awareness first, because once you're aware that these are your thoughts, these are your anxieties, these are probably not facts, or if they are, we can work through them, it's going to be okay. That's when you're on a better track. And also, anyone who has any kind of, I don't know, maybe social anxiety or anxiety when it comes to other people, since, you know, we're human beings, we interact with other people, that can be a big source of our anxiety. We have to remember to take other people's opinions with a grain of salt, because how often can we get anxious about what we think other people think of us, or how we think people are judging us, or even if someone were to say something unkind, how much can we spend so much time being anxious over those things? But that's when we turn to our faith and realize, hey, the only person whose opinion is worth it is God, and these other people, we can't stress about them because their opinions don't matter. And the right people in your life will support you. The right people in your life will be respectful of you, and they'll understand your anxiety. And I think relying on the people in your life, relying on God and working through those thought patterns are some of the best things you can do if you deal with any kind of anxiety.
That's excellent advice. And as your mother, I will say you've done so well with it, and I'm very proud of you. And I can't say that enough. You know, being your mom, I mean, I know that you have done so well with trying very hard with it, and commend you for your perseverance. And thank you for giving that advice to people. Did you have any other words that you wanted to say on that topic?
I think it's just remembering that if you have anxiety, it's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be a battle you're going to deal with every day. But like we said, it builds perseverance, it builds strength. And with that being said, I think one of the best things that you can do is channel that energy you have in your brain into something creative or something that you want to do, which is a big reason why I started the infamous Your Part-Time Princess, because I wanted to do something with all of that. I wanted to put all of that anxiety to work. If I'm going to stress about something, it might as well be something that I'm passionate about. Am I right? Yes. So I think taking the theater aspect, taking the I'm a people person, so taking that and taking the creativity aspect and channeling all of that to make the business was one of the best decisions, because how much just that alone has helped my anxiety. I always tell people this, and I think it's on my website too, so it's not news, but how much whenever I go to a party, it's just amazing to see a little kid run up to you and hug you, and they think you're a princess, which is amazing. I mean,
oh, wow.
I am. Well, I don't blame them. I mean, I'm dressed up like a princess. But for them to say, oh my gosh, you're my favorite princess or something like that, it's such a confidence boost. It takes away all of your anxieties. So I just think channeling any of your anxiety into something creative or something that can help other people is another thing that is great for anyone who struggles to do.
Yeah, that's this idea, your part-time princess, and this business is such a very unique idea. I think. I mean, I'm sure that there's other services out there, but not with the same person behind it, not with the same heart behind it. And what I was inspired by was, I was watching one of your TikToks. First of all, it's unbelievable how you go from how you go from Shawn right to Cinderella, like with the wave of a hand and a few sparkles. I don't think I could create a TikTok that looked like that, but it was very awesome. But other than that, though, I agree. I think that the reasoning for you doing this and wanting to inspire young women, I think is just awesome. And I kind of want to find out a little bit more behind it. Just even some of the stories you kind of started talking about them. The people running up to you saying, "Oh my gosh, you're my favorite princess" and stuff like that. But what is and by the way, I've never said that on the air either ever before. But no, tell me what the impetus behind like the whole thing is, and some of the joy moments, some of those moments of joy that are there for you, that help uplift your faith and those who are around you.
That's a great question, and I get so many questions like this where sometimes people ask me funny things like, "What's the funniest thing a little kid ever said to you?" or what's the greatest experience? And when it comes down to it, there's one memory. It was actually probably about a year ago that I think of, and it really is so much better than all the funniness or the silliness, because these kids can be really ridiculous sometimes. But this story is something that really touched my heart, and it's something has been on my heart for quite a long time now. But I was attending this one party late summer about a year ago, and before I went, the mom had mentioned to me, "Hey, my daughter, she has autism. Sometimes she might get a little bit overwhelmed. She's so excited to see you. I'm not totally sure how she's going to react, but I think it'll be great. I just wanted to give you a heads up in case she gets overwhelmed." So I emailed her back, "Oh, of course, whatever makes her comfortable, let me know, whatever I can do." And I went, and it was an amazing party. She was awesome. She really, you could tell she loved that I was there. She had such a great birthday party. And as I left, I really didn't get anything of it. I just thought that what another great, wonderful birthday party. And then when I got home, I received an email saying, oh my goodness, Shawn, all the parents were amazed by you. But most importantly, my daughter, I'd never seen her so happy, so engaged, so outgoing, so just in awe of what was happening at that present moment. And she concluded the email by saying, you're wonderful at what you do. We can't thank you enough. And it was just, out of all the parties that I've done, I always get a thank you. I always get a, you were wonderful. But to know that I impacted someone who has a struggle, who understands, and a little girl, I felt like I did something really amazing. And it was just so simple, just by being her favorite princess. And I don't know, that's just a story that I think I'll always remember. I think even years from now, if I'm still a princess in 10 years, I think that'll always still be my favorite memory.
I'll remember that one too.
Yeah,
as your mom.
There's a grace there in that, there's certain graces that we get. And what's amazing about, that story is too, that, your presence, the gift of presence is something that I think we all take for granted in our world. We are present on social media. We are present on virtually sometimes at a Zoom meeting for work or whatever. But we struggle at times with the gift of our presence. Being fully invested in somebody, being fully invested in the mission of just being with somebody. And it's not about saying the right thing. It's not about doing the right thing, or doing any number of things correctly, I should say. It's always about doing the right thing. But there's something about the gift of presence, especially in the story, where it's just, okay, I am just present, and that is enough. And the Holy Spirit can work through the gift of presence. And so, that is such a beautiful story. And I really encourage each and every person out there, you don't have to worry about doing, we hear it all the time. So sometimes, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And, be a human being. And so, of course, you also get the royalty of being a princess and all of those cool things for young girls, but never underestimate the presence of what you are portraying, that royalty, that purity, all of those things that you bring into that role, of being a, princess for however, long you are being a princess for a party, a birthday party or whatever. Just that's so beautiful. And I wanted to draw attention to that because I think we as especially young people, and really all people, as we throw ourselves into our iPhones, we throw ourselves into our work. It's just about being present and sitting there and enjoying dinner or a baseball game or whatever you're enjoying with your spouse, your children, or whatever it is. Just throw yourself into presence. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for that example because I think it's a great one.
Yeah, she's just done so well. And I have to tell our viewers too, especially those who live in the greater Philadelphia area, which is where we are from. And if you would like to contact Shawn for her business, is that she's very personalized in the way that she interacts with her clients, as she just said. Also, she has so many of the different princesses available for those birthday parties. And the neat thing is she's made a lot of those costumes too, which I think is just totally wonderful and fantastic that you have done that. Tell us a little bit about that, because you've done such a great job with creating some of those costumes.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, half of, I guess, the motivation is just channeling that anxiety energy into something creative. But yeah, I have never made anything from scratch, but there have been times where I upcycled either an old bridesmaid's dress or a dress that looked like a certain princess and kind of revamped it. And for the most part, it has worked out really well. I was kind of surprised at what I could do, considering I can't sew very well. But I got it. I figured it out, and I made some really great costumes that I am proud of. And I don't know. I guess it's just a way of making it more personalized. Something that I talk to people about. The kind of brand that I want to show for my princess business, because there are so many princess businesses out there that have so many different, I don't know, people, so many different people being different princesses. There's managers, there's all these different, in these princess empires, there's so many different people working. But what I like to say is, hey, what you see is what you get. I'm every princess. I ran the behind the scenes and actually being the princess, and even some of the costumes. So I might not be like these huge franchise, but I think that I like to show people the authenticity of just you get what you see. Your Part-Time Princess Parties by Shawn DeSantis. So
it is totally amazing, and I want to invite our listeners to go to yourparttimeprincess.com. I think I have the website correct there.
That's correct.
She's also on a lot of the social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. So you want to look for Your Part-Time Princess. Her name again is Shawn DeSantis. She is a 21-year-old college student and my daughter that I'm very proud of. So I would just invite people to like those pages and subscribe. And if you live in the greater Philadelphia area, please do get in touch with Shawn about a party. So tell us a little bit more about that and how they can, what do you do during those parties so that if they have a child that they like to do a party for, maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I have a couple different things that I offer. And also there's a bit of a change as far as, we're in the green phase now in our area. So what I'm doing with that, handling things in a safe way, is I'm doing all outside parties, minimum of 25 people, and we will be practicing social distancing in the party. But that doesn't mean that we can't have fun. That doesn't mean we can't take photos. And, there's still going to be a princess there. But basically what I do is I offer a couple of different prices and packages where I offer a 30-minute party. So you get to see a princess for 30 minutes. We'll do some singing, some dancing, photos, games, story times, anything along the lines of that. And then the basic package that a lot of people get is the 1 hour, and that's everything, but we'll also be doing face painting. Or in this instance, we'll be doing some tattoos since that's a little safer. And then for longer parties, I can do a 2-hour party. And then, of course, I also do other events like meet and greets and some other kind of creative things. During the peak of the pandemic, I was doing a lot of princess Zoom calls, princess FaceTime calls, princess videos, because, people, little kids still deserve to have a good birthday. They still deserve to see a princess, even if they can't see her in person. So I was happy to do those.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm sure that was a neat thing to do, is do a Zoom call. It
really was very creative too.
That's got to be so fun.
Yes. Now we're about 15 minutes out from the end of the show, and usually on this show we talk life, faith, and mission. So we're up to that point where we'd love you to share a little bit about your faith. And you are a woman of faith, and I know that you have stuck with your faith even through college. Maybe you can share on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare to stick with your faith through college. And, there are those people out there that do stick with their faith. They do follow what they believe in. But then sometimes it seems like so many people just don't. They don't care. They don't care about a greater purpose than just what's going on here and now. But all we can do is pray for people with that kind of mindset.
That's right.
Yeah, I think my faith in college has just really consisted of surrounding myself with the right people, staying true to myself no matter what I believe people see me as, no matter what I believe people think of me. God calls us to be true to ourselves. God calls us to be authentic, and God calls us to not go with the flow, to be different and not care about the opinions of others, which is such a thing that we see in all ages. You know, people always say young people this, young people that, but all ages, everyone, there's always a little bit of, you know, negative, thinking negative about people or judging people, no matter what age you are. And
That's right.
We see it in college. We see it at any age, and it's difficult in a world like that to stay true to yourself. But that's what we're called to as Christians and even non-believers, because we were all created with purpose. We were all created to be ourselves, no one else.
That's right. And I also commend you that you have stayed very active with some of the young adult Catholic groups. Can you explain, especially for those who live in the greater Philadelphia area and they want to get involved? Maybe somebody's listening who says, you know what, I know nothing about some of these groups. What advice can you give them?
Yeah, a lot of it was just connections through my youth group. And I love helping out with my youth group, not only because it's nostalgic for me, but because I can help these kids when I know exactly what it's like to be in their shoes in high school. And I would just recommend anyone who wants to either help people or dive deeper into their faith as a younger person to just do your research. There are so many different groups and things you can do in your area, whether that be you're helping out at a youth group, whether that be you're going to a young adults meeting. There are so many different opportunities. They are out there, you know. It's not, we don't live in a world where nobody follows the faith. People still, might not be as many, but people still find value in faith, and people are willing to reach out to people who think similarly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I like how you also, you know, are staying active and calling young people to action. I think it's incredibly important during this time of COVID to be active in your faith, right? And reach out and, you know, and especially right now too, I think we're kind of seeing the world under a different lens in COVID, and it would just be interesting to kind of get your perspective, Shawn, on some of the things that are going on in this COVID environment. You know, from what are you seeing where with young people, where faith and life with COVID kind of intersect? And I know we're approaching too a time when we have to speak out as Catholics. You know, coming up in November when we have to speak out as Catholics and talk about our faith in the public square and what that means. And so I just want to kind of get your perspective on all of that as we approach this time of
Well,
you know.
To backtrack about your question about this time period with COVID, I see it two different ways. I see it as an opportunity to stick up for what we believe in, and then I see it in another way because the world has never been so diverse in opinions, in what people stand for, and what even people view as wrong and right anymore in so many respects. And I think now more than ever is the most important time to go back to our values and to evaluate what we really think is right and what we really think is wrong. We can't just listen to the society with everything, because society is so often and so much just not right with different things. We have to go back to core values. We have to really think. I think people they'll be presented with news, or they'll be presented with media, and they won't think. They won't think, is this right or is this wrong? They'll just go with it because that's how the media presents it. And I think we need to go back to just basic, like preschool, like what is wrong and right. And we need to decide that before we follow the media when it is in selecting our views. We have to go back. We can't just listen to society. We have to go back to the morals and what we think is wrong and right.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you so much. You said it perfectly. Yeah,
absolutely, Shawn. Yeah, and you know, what what is the importance of, you know, I mean, we don't want to get, you know, too, you know, political, but what is the importance of, you know, standing up, you know, like a lot of people think, you know, a lot of young people think, oh, well, you know, my voice, you know, because it's so diverse out there, doesn't matter, you know, because it's so diverse, because it's so, you know, everybody's got their own opinion. But what does it mean, you know, to kind of come together as young people and stand up for these values that they believe in, it, you know, as November rolls around, toward the election time, like what does that mean for young people? What does that mean to you?
I think that speaking up for what you believe in is one of the best things you can do, because it encourages other people who have that same belief but might be too scared to share it, or they might not want to share it because they don't think anyone else thinks the same thing. It's also, like I talked about so much, it's also a way to stay true to yourself, because, you know, in a polite way, I'm not saying you go screaming in someone's face what your opinions are, but to be able to speak up for yourself when you feel like it's necessary, speak up for yourself, because that's being true to yourself, and that's what God calls us to do. God doesn't call us to be silent when everyone else is agreeing on something that is wrong. God doesn't call us to kind of shrink and nod our head and laugh at something that's not really funny. He calls us to be brave. He calls us to believe in ourselves in a way that he has given us confidence to share what's right and to live by that.
Amen. Amen. And that's so true. I like what you said, that sometimes you almost have to go back to when you were a little kid and say, is something right or is it wrong? And I think in society, sometimes we lose that whole aspect of what we know is truly wrong. And I want to just commend you, because being your mom, I'm very proud of the fact that you have been able to clearly see that at your age, at 21, the difference between what is truly something good and what isn't good. So thanks for sharing on that. Are there any particular issues, as Bill said, although we're not going to get real political here, what issues for young voters? I know that you have friends. It's going to be the first time that they're voting. I think this is your first time to vote in a presidential election, I think, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like you said, I'm 21. Most people can vote when they're 18. And I remember last election, I was 17. So I was bummed because I was a year off. But yeah, I'm excited because I can vote for the first time this year, and I'm definitely going to do that. But yeah, I think that you have to pick the person that you think is respectful of all human life, and pick the person that you believe has not just ethics, but morals, because we learn so much about how those two things are different. Well, they're both important. And we
Amen.
have to evaluate that in that respect and choose accordingly to that. And if we're unsure, it's not going to be a decision, an off the whim decision. It has to be something you think about. It has to be something you do your research on, because if you're not set, then you might make a mistake.
Yeah, good thinking.
Yeah, that's great. That's some really good advice. You know, for young people, just to take a look at it and examine, you know, those areas, you know, ethics, morals, human life, and the dignity of all people. You know, we're hearing a lot of buzzwords in our society about the dignity of all people these days. A lot of hashtags float around the internet about dignity of all people, or a certain group of people at times. And so really slow yourself down and really think about and pray about who is the best person in that regard. And I think, you know, encouraging young people to use their voice and their vote is such an important thing. So I thank you for sharing that, because, you know, I think I was telling your mom earlier today, I said, you know, I think we have to almost say nothing because we're older, you know, and
That's right.
we're almost older. And so people hearing it from you, Shawn, you know, in your age bracket, that this is important, is lends itself gives itself a lot of weight, I should say. So thank you for sharing that and just speaking that it's important to vote as a Catholic young adult. It's very important. So thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I agree. And I know earlier we were talking about, Shawn, you and I, with our voting decisions too, it's important to think about our country remaining a free country. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that and how important it is to think about those decisions when you vote for someone.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important when it comes to voting. Like I said, it just goes back to, if you're unsure, to evaluating those core beliefs, those core values, and going from there.
Awesome.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Shawn,
any other closing thoughts that you have about just faith or anything else? Because, we're headed about 5 minutes out till the end, and you've been a wonderful, wonderful guest. And I really mean that. You know that I say what I mean. So you've been an amazing guest.
Thank you so much. It was so good to talk about some of the things that are important to me with faith and the business and mission. I think that God uses all of these things in our lives and incorporates them. And so much have I seen patterns in my life with, like I said, using that anxiety energy to start something good and relying on my faith. Everything is connected. And I just encourage everyone listening, or anyone who also has a passion or had an anxiety disorder, is connected to recognize those patterns in their lives about how things are connected, because things are connected in that way. God uses circumstances, He uses people, He uses mindsets, He uses our passions and interests, He uses everything for their good, and He sets a mission for us. And I'm so blessed to have, at a young age, to have been able to see that mission. I'd love to help people in the future who also struggle with anxiety. I'd love to continue the princess business and start an empire. I tell everyone, only select people will get that. So, really grow in my faith and to help people. I think showing mercy to other people, which is another big theme from my school, it's showing mercy to people. That's a huge one. And I just challenge everyone to see those kinds of patterns that God uses in their lives.
So beautiful. I'm so proud of you. I can't say it enough. And it's probably rare that a mother gets to interview her daughter on a podcast. So I will just end by saying, what a joy you are. And thank you for being a wonderful person in my own life, my daughter, my treasure. So I thank you. And your sister's my treasure too. You know that. I know she's listening. So hi, Elaine. Your treasure too.
Hi, Elaine.
Yep. And hi, Dad. So you are amazing. And I just continue to praise you for all the good that you're doing in your life and touching so many lives. Bill, thank you for also inviting her with me to be a guest on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope it's not the only time you're on with us, Shawn. I hope you're on many more times.
Yeah.
I am so, thankful to you as well for all the behind the scenes work you've been doing to help us with Patchwork Heart Ministry, Sowing Hope. You've been awesome in helping us work behind the scenes to make this podcast what it is, because it wouldn't be the same without your work. So thank you so much for doing this, and the person that you are is just awesome. So I really appreciate all that you are doing to help us.
Can't agree more. Thank you again. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
yeah, it has been awesome. Absolutely. Well, folks, it's always amazing how fast the hour flies. But and for all of us here at the Sowing Hope podcast, for Shawn DeSantis and Ann DeSantis, I'm Bill Snyder. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to keep beating to your Catholic heart and sowing hope into broken hearts. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries. Visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or AndySantis2.
Fiat Ministry Network invite you to discover your mission. A brand new in-depth monthly video series featuring engaging Catholic speakers who will challenge you to live your life abundantly. For only $25 a month, you will receive a personal monthly mission, including 3 full-length inspirational talks that build upon a new theme each month. Sign up for the Discover Your Mission tier at patreon.com/patchworkheartministry today.